Hi there everyone, this is Ashley with Marshflower Studio. In this video I am going to show you guys how I make my little cicadas. This is a great project, super fast, gets rid of lots and lots of, those little bits of unused yarn from other projects. You can use any color of yarn. Cicadas are not the most gorgeous bug out there, but they are fun and they are very reminiscent of summer and playing outside and being a kid, especially if you live in the South. So I like to choose my colors kind of based on that idea. So I do lots of like greens and teals, but I also do lots of pinks and purples. I made one yesterday and my daughter ran off with it and it was pink and blue. So she thought it was just the coolest, funniest, goofiest looking little thing ever. Because of the size of these, it is super easy to put a little keychain on them as well. That's what most of mine will get turned into. But we'll get started with how to make this super fast, super cute little guy. This first one that I'm holding is made with the Premier Puzzle yarn, and this is the color Maize. So if you want to do one similar to this little guy, I like using this yarn for, not specifically this color, but all the colors that they make for little projects like this, because you get a little bit of that color variation. And when you're doing projects that aren't color specific, like if you're not making a yellow and brown giraffe, these are just some fun things that kind of draw attention, can get people to stop and look for a second longer, and then maybe buy one if you sell them. This little guy that I have started over here is made with the same puzzle yarn. However, the wrapper came off of it at some point, so I'm not sure what color this is any longer. But, oh, here it is. This is what the rest of the ball looks like all rolled up. So it's got some pinks, some blues, along with that green in there. But because of how they have those longer stretches in between color changes, this guy ended up all this kind of greenish teal color. So you could use the same skein of yarn and have, endless combinations of color changes in your little bug. The eyes that I use for these guys are 12mm eyes. Just because I like how big and goofy they kind of make them look. You could use smaller eyes if you want. You could use colored eyes. Totally up to you. You could even go bigger if you feel like going bigger would make them even more adorable, which I kind of think it would. Especially if you're going to do some that are with that slightly chunkier, thicker yarn. So sorry. Definitely scale up your eyes to match, making these guys a little bit bigger. So the puzzle yarn is, let's see, it is rated as a bulky yarn, and they recommend a 6mm hook. However, I try to stick to smaller hooks. I try to go as small as I can, especially for making keychains or just smaller little stuffed animal critters, because it keeps the stuffing from showing through. So I always go as small as I can manage for that reason. So I use a 4mm hook. I'm going to be using the 4mm hook for this other yarn I'm going to use for the video. And this one is rated a 4 medium. And they recommend a 5.5mm hook. But this is definitely one of the thinner 4-weight yarns. So you will see a noticeable difference in size between the one I'm going to make for the video and these guys that are already sitting here ready to go. The second part of these little guys is the wing, and I'm still using a number 4 medium weight yarn for the wings in just a soft white. But I do use a 3mm hook for that. Again, I try to go as small as I can for some of the parts and pieces. With the wings, I wanted to make sure that they were nice and tight and kind of sturdy, so that they would not just flop around once they get attached onto this little guy's back. I didn't want them to be, you know, just crumpled up and all over the place. So it kind of makes them a little more sturdy using that smaller hook to get those done. And the wing is a right side and different pattern for left side, just because the shape of them is so much better when you've got this kind of thinner edge on the inner part of the wing, and then it kind of fans out a little on that outside part. A little more wing shape. The pattern for these is actually borrowed from a leaf pattern that I had. I think I usually put it on peaches. But if you don't love this particular wing shape, you can look at other shapes of leaves, and that would give you a good starting place to kind of create your own wing if you don't love this one. Okay, so we've got our hooks. Of course, we need scissors. I don't particularly need a stitch marker for this project because it is so small. You don't really need one, but I do recommend just these large hairpins if you haven't tried them before. They're awesome for this kind of thing. They slide on and off really easy. They don't get in your way as much as some of the ones that are like safety pin or the ones that you have to like swirl. Those to me seem really bulky and kind of aggravating. So if you need a stitch marker, these are fantastic. And we will need a yarn needle just to kind of tie off our loose ends and tuck them in. So got that over to the side as well. All right, let me get my yarn ready here. And for the body, we are going to start with a magic circle. If you're not familiar with a magic circle, that is totally okay. You can do a chain 2 and then work your stitches into the second chain from the hook. Okay, so we're going to have 6 in our circle here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if at any point I'm going too fast, just hit pause. I try to keep the videos as short as I can, and sometimes that means I just move really, really quick. Okay, for the second row, we're going to do 6 increases, so we'll have 12 stitches. So 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Pull our middle tight, so that's nice and closed up there. Our next row, we're going to have an increase in a single crochet, so it'll take our stitch count out to 18. So increase 1 and 2, and then 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, now we're going to do 4 rows of 18, and then we're going to pop our eyes in so that they're easy to get to before we continue the rest of this little guy's body. So there's my first 2, and I am actually going to use a stitch counter. A counter. Oh, some mornings. If you were watching the video super closely, as I was, oh, there we go again. As I was working those first couple, this particular yarn I'm working with right now is what I would call stringy. And I know that can mean so many different things. It's not wrapped or twisted super tight. So if you're not careful, you will end up with your hook going through the middle of the strand instead of just grabbing the whole thing. If you're a beginner, there are definitely some better yarns out there to use to try and kind of get familiar with how to crochet, and then kind of move over to some different kinds of yarn as you get a little more comfortable. But the ones that are the easiest to learn on are almost like a cord. They have kind of like a jersey cotton on the outside, and then they have fibers on the inside. But it's almost like some of the shoestrings that are more the rounded shape. It's almost like crocheting with that. So there's not all these little separate individual threads for you to get kind of tangled on or caught on or accidentally go in between. And at the end of the video, I will pull out one of my skeins of that so you can kind of see a little bit better what I'm talking about. Definitely when you're just learning, there are some yarns and some threads that you should really avoid unless you just want to get really frustrated and give up. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So I'm going to take a quick pause and I'm going to put my eyes in. And it's really kind of up to you where you want to put the eyes. I like for mine to be like halfway down the head. You could put them up top, you could put them in the middle, you could put them close together, you could put them way far out on the side. It's really just whatever you think is the cutest or the quirkiest or whatever you want to do. And each one you do may be different. I think that'll work for this guy. Pop our backs on. It's already looking cute and derpy. All right. So then we have 3 more rows of the body here. So overall, you're doing rows 4 through 10 in just single crochet. Somewhere in the middle, stopping to pop those eyes in place. I've been crocheting for 25 plus years. And even this yarn gets me some days. But when you want a specific color for something, sometimes your options are limited on the kind of yarn. All right, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Got one more row. And if you feel like your cicada is too short, you can add another row or 2 to this middle section and make them a little longer. Add an extra row to the body isn't going to change anything super important as far as counts go or anything like that. All right, so I've got my 10 total rows here. I'm going to put some stuffing up inside this guy. And you want to make sure that you're getting some in between those 2 posts where the eyes are to kind of hold them in place. And if they look a little wonky once you're all done, you can always use your yarn needle to kind of poke through and shift those posts a little bit, but kind of getting started when you can actually use your finger to put the stuffing in there makes it a little easier. All right, so we have 2 more rows left. We have row 11, where we're going to do a single crochet and a decrease. That takes us back down to a stitch count of 12. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Get rid of that stitch marker. All right, so our last row is just 6 decreases. I make sure I get the rest of his little butt stuffed here. Make sure he's got a booty. And these guys, for the most part, have a fairly rounded back end, but if you want it to be a little more tapered, you could do just a single crochet row of 12 if you want that a little bit more pointed, tapered behind. All right, so our last row is just 6 decreases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then my little guys have this tiny little bit of a point for their behind, and that's because I do one more decrease. And then a slip stitch to fasten off. So we'll cut our yarn tail, pull that through, and to close this up back here, use my yarn needle. I think this is most often referred to as the invisible close, but we're going under the front loop only of these last, we'll say 5 stitches now. From the outside to the inside. That was really tight. So pull that tight, and then I've got my tail from my start. I like to just put a little square knot in there. Keep everything held in place. And we'll tuck this tail right through that hole, out the side. Goodness. Make sure we get his butt puckered back out there. Trim off the extra. So there's our little body. All right, so for the wings, gotta flip my page in the little book over here. Like I said, we're gonna do a slightly smaller hook just to try to make sure that our wings are nice and kind of firm and sturdy. And I am just using a Red Heart number 4 yarn for this part. So we're going to start with our left wing, and we're going to do a chain 10. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, and then in the 4th chain from the hook, so 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to do 3 double crochets. 1, same hole, 2, same hole for 3. And then we're going to have 3 double crochets kind of going down the chain here. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to have a half double, a single, and then a slip stitch in that very end. We're going to do a chain 1, and we're going to turn and work our way back up the other side of that original chain. We're going to do a slip stitch in that very end part again. And then we're going to have a single crochet. We're going to have 4 half doubles, kind of working our way up here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in this last stitch chain here where we started, we're going to do 3 half doubles, the same together. And then we're going to do a slip stitch into the bottom of that chain that we had where we started our double crochets. All right, so we'll cut a little bit of a tail so we can sew that to his body. So again, that's the left side. Use one of our hairpins to hold that in place for a minute. The right side, we're going to do just a chain 9 to start with. And that's mostly because when we started with our chain 10, we were going into the 4th stitch from the hook to start our double crochets. And with our chain 9, since we're only doing half double crochets, we don't need as many chains to kind of bridge that gap. So we are only doing 9 chains. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then in the 3rd chain from the hook, we're going to do 3 half doubles. 1, 2, 3, all in the same space there. And we're going to do 4 half doubles working our way down the chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do a single crochet and then a slip stitch in the last one. Do our chain 1, and then we're going to turn and work our way back up the other side of the original chain. So get a slip stitch in the very end there, single crochet, half double in the next. I have 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 doubles in this last space all together. And then to kind of bridge this gap from where we are with our hook back to the body, we're going to do a chain 1, and then we'll just go and slip stitch into that first half double from the other side. So we'll do the same thing. We'll cut that off, pull it through. And then we have his other wing. When I sew these on, I only sew this little top half curve, just because I like for them to be able to kind of wiggle and flap and show all that pretty color that we've used for the body. There are lots and lots of little critters out there right now that have that kind of little V-shape embroidered mouth that you could totally put on these guys as well. I can actually do that really fast. So the yarn that I use for, we'll say, facial features and expression is one of these, oh my gosh, I can't think of what it is right now. Hobby Lobby, one of the Hobby Lobby yarns, the Baby Bee. This one's soft licorice. You know, sometimes they make up cute names for yarn, and sometimes they just give them a number now. But this is a number 3 lightweighted yarn, so it is thinner. And I find it just looks a little bit better when you're doing mouths or eyebrows or whiskers or things like that. So we're just going to kind of pick some random spot here. Again, just tie this off with a little square knot. And then tuck the little tails in. You've got that big-eyed, derpy smile. Cute little guy here. So I will sew his wings on before I finish up here. I also want to show you guys the cord yarn. If you're new and would like some little insider tip on how to learn without getting, you know, super crazy. This is only one of the brands that makes it. I call it cord yarn. Some of the other companies call it bungee yarn. It is rated as a bulky number 5 weight. I always use it as just a number 4 worsted weight when I am planning to make stuff with it. Just make sure that you use, you know, a hook size that you're comfortable with. But this, let's see if I can find one of the ends. There's one. So if you can see the texture of it, it's more like, you know, just cotton t-shirty kind of stuff. And then on the inside, it's wrapped around just these other thin fibers. But this is definitely something that's way easier to learn with. And you can do a lot of stuff with this that you can't really do with some of the other yarns as easy. But there is that. Like I said, there are other brands, other companies that also make their version of that if you're interested. So I need to take first, kind of get these starting tails woven in and out of the way. you're placing your wings on your little cicada, just remember that you want that thinner edge to be in the middle of his back. Make sure we got the right spacing here. I'm gonna go down through his body and kind of out the side. I can pick up right over here. There's one. There's a second one. Oops. Sewn on, and then we'll use tails from both to kind of tie them off and tuck those in. And there we go. So I'll do my little square knot here. We'll tuck our tails back down through his body. There's our derpy little cicada. If you wanted to have a little bit more detail, you could use some more of this kind of lighter weight yarn and stitch a few little legs onto the bottom here. I do that with my possums because I don't want to make feet for them, so I just use pink thread for them, but just making a couple little embroidered stitches gives them those adorable little pink feet on the bottom. That's a nice little surprise. So you could do the same thing with these little cicadas. So I hope you enjoy making these. I would love to see some if you would like to post them or tag. Instagram tag is just at Marshflower Studio. I love seeing stuff that people make from my videos. If you have questions, pop them in the comments. Check the description box. There will be a pattern, like a written out pattern for these available on Etsy soon. So the link for that will be in the description. If you would like to have the written out version, that will be there for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that. Like the video if you like the little cicadas, or just like cicadas in general, either way. And I'll see you guys next time.